The world today, every day on CGTN.
We can try out a wild and crazy idea. Nothing can stop an idea whose time is coming. This idea is coming. I actually feel quite comfortable in isolation. We should all be very busy when we're trying to save the world.
昨天直播没有来吗？昨天的那个直播比较现代着装啊，今天稍微古典一点。昨天有谁在啊？昨天。
Welcome back. Reminder of our headlines. EU foreign ministers meet to agree tougher sanctions on Belarus, and the airlines it accuses of creating the border migrant crisis. Austria puts 2 million people that have not been fully vaccinated in lockdown as COVID infections spread. And UK anti-terror police investigate an explosion in a taxi outside a Liverpool hospital that killed one person. China's President Xi Jinping will hold a video meeting with US President Joe Biden in the coming hours, the first since Biden took office. It follows 2 phone calls between the leaders this year, but comes at a time of fraught diplomatic relations on issues like trade, technology and Taiwan. Let's cross to Beijing and our reporter Li Jianhua. Good to see you, Li Jianhua. Trade, the pandemic, climate change, what will be discussed?
Yes, Juliet, the online meeting comes at a time of fraught relations on issues like trade, technology and Taiwan. As for the agenda, there are already some assumptions. Taiwan is likely to be on the top of the agenda given the simmering tensions of the island. The US has repeatedly said it supports the One China policy, but the White House stressed there has been no change in the US policy of strategic ambiguity on whether it would defend Taiwan. The Chinese Foreign Ministry this afternoon said the One China policy that the US now holds has been distorted and is different from the consensus that China and the US reached when China-US ties were first.
昨天主播直播的时候已经时间挺晚的了。
The two countries are still in a trade war since 2018, despite round.
所以等你刚上线的时候，那肯定估计应该12点半了吧？昨天应该主播12点半下线。
If it doesn't change its trade practice, China wants a free trade and the US trade tariffs on its exports be lifted, of course. And technology for sure will be on the agenda since the trade war happened. The US has slammed sanctions on several Chinese tech companies, including the tech giant Huawei, which is also the 5G leader, drone maker DJI or Dajiang, and surveillance firm Hikvision. So besides the trade war, we're looking at a tech war between them. Security in the Asia-Pacific region could be another topic. Under the framework of AUKUS, we know, Australia will have nuclear-powered submarines, so China is really worried that this is a move against its military presence in the South China Sea. And of course, pandemic cooperation will be on the agenda, given the virus still rampant across the world. There will be loads of differences and settle, Juliet.
Li Jianhua, you know, it's good to talk, but do we really expect anything concrete to come out of it?
Really, I'm not sure. I'm sure that both sides don't want to get their hopes up at this point. And ever since Joe Biden took office, we've thought that the new US administration may not continue to take harsh lines against China like his predecessor Donald Trump. But remember Biden's first address to Congress, he said China and some other
这2年不都挺流行这种复古风的吗？
should maintain its leadership role. So what's for sure is that Biden would take his priorities against China and be very candid with President Xi this time, according to the White House. And Biden is confronted with many internal problems, and we know the rising unemployment rate and inflation, also his supporting rate is going lower. So he may need to shift the public's attention at this point. And if we look at the high-level talks over the past year, the two sides had some heated exchanges, especially the face-to-face meeting in Alaska, which was rare.
80年代那种旗袍应该是更花哨一点，都是那种大花底儿，然后桑蚕丝的那种面料会多一点，要么就是那种布的格子状的。
And doesn't hope China will overtake this role as the world's leader. What China wants is mutual respect, urging the U.S. not to interfere in China's internal affairs. And China aims to
你都没有加主播的粉丝牌，在这说啥呢？
Major power relationship is based on mutual and reciprocal respect and should be a new normal. So based on the high-level talks in the past year, we can see they are willing to talk and work on differences, but it takes time. Juliet.
It does take time, Jean-Pierre. Thank you very much. Sounds like this talk will be intense. Beijing has a new stock exchange with a focus on what are called the little giants. Trading opened on Monday with 81 companies. And this comes amid a crackdown on tech companies in China, which spooked investors, knocking more than $1 trillion off the value of Tencent Holdings and other tech giants on Wall Street and the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. A Harvard-educated entrepreneur whose anti-corruption party was formed only weeks ago is emerging as Bulgaria's hope to end political deadlock. The We Continue the Change party is in the lead, with 25.4% of the vote, based on 61% of ballots counted from Sunday's election. Linda Kennedy reports.
In just 2 months, a new anti-corruption party has garnered support across Bulgaria. At its helm, a Bulgarian politician being compared to Justin Trudeau and Emmanuel Macron. Kirill Petkov was educated in the US at Harvard and founded a company that makes vegan probiotics. As caretaker economy minister earlier this year, he became one of the first politicians in Bulgaria to expose alleged misuse of public funds. With another Harvard-educated minister, he quickly formed We Continue the Change, which looks set to win around a quarter of the votes cast in this Bulgarian election. Petrov is the great hope for those opposed to ex-Prime Minister Boyko Borisov, who faced huge street protests in 2020. Borisov's decade-long rule ended with Bulgaria's first election this year in April, amid public anger over his failure to crack down on corruption. His centre-right party is also set to secure around a quarter of the votes.
频道是那个
President
CCTV，
Radev, a harsh critic of
不是
Borisov,
别
won
的，
49.2%
也
of
不是
votes
电
in
影
the，
很
presidential
多人以为主
election
播在看
that
电影。
also took place on Sunday, and he's tipped to win a second 5-year term. The turnout this time is a historic low of
没有
around
加粉丝
20%
牌的，
with
赶紧加个
public
粉丝
apathy
牌啊！
and coronavirus infections that have overwhelmed hospitals. Bulgaria is the least vaccinated EU member state, with just 23% of people vaccinated. Tough coalition negotiations lie ahead to create a workable government. 4 parties are needed for a coalition. And at the elections earlier this year in April and July, no coalition could be agreed, which is why this election was held. Kirill Petkov says that his party is open to dialogue and compromise, but that he will not renege on his promise to overhaul the judiciary and clamp down on corruption. Linda Kennedy, CGTN, Budapest.
Millions of Afghans could face starvation this winter, according to the United Nations. As well as food shortages, the cost of fuel has soared in a country heavily dependent on diesel, wood and coal. The situation is even more bleak for the many people in
这
Syria
双
displaced by conflict.
个儿比较高，大概12厘米。
Abdul Hadid Aris reports from Kabul.
Winter is looming and the farms are concerned about how they'll get through it as they grapple with an unprecedented increase in the cost of fuel. The high prices are having a big impact, especially on those who run central heating systems.
The money is blocked. Banks have not returned to normal. That's why traders can't import fuel. So fuel prices have increased. The price of both diesel and petrol is high.
We use a central heating system in this apartment. The fuel is expensive. 1 liter is sold at 80 AFM. Problems are rising with the winter approaching fast. Also, people say the coming winter will be very harsh.
The change in regime has affected almost everyone in some way. Many people have lost their jobs and businesses, and they are now unable to feed themselves, let alone buy wood or fuel to heat their houses.
The market for wood is the economy has been devastated, and the market was better last year. But this year, people have become so poor that they can't buy wood and coal.
Some of the most vulnerable people in the capital are internally displaced people who are still living in tents. Most of them don't even get 1 meal a day. In addition to worrying about basic needs, they are extremely apprehensive about how to meet their eating needs this winter, a problem that has not yet been addressed.
Because of the cold weather, I put the 2 available blankets on my husband, who is paralyzed, and we spend the whole winter without any covering at night. Everyone here has nothing. A few children in this camp have died because of cold weather.
The Taliban authorities say they have plans to relocate the IDPs by encouraging them to return to their home provinces.
We have talked with various NGOs to address the needs of IDPs, and we have arranged things for the winter, such as warm clothes and other items. When IDPs move to their home provinces, we will send the list of IDPs to their respective Provincial Directorate of Repatriation and Refugees, through which the IDPs will receive assistance such as winter clothes and anything else required.
Despite the Taliban promising that things will return to normal, the skyrocketing fuel prices are worrying citizens. The Afghan people, especially internally displaced persons, are hoping the Taliban will step up and control the price of commodities and intervene to aid those in desperate need of assistance. Abdul Hadi Dari, CGTN, Kabul.
The headlines again. EU foreign ministers meet to agree tougher sanctions on Belarus and the airlines it accuses of creating the border migrant crisis. Austria puts 2 million people that have not been fully vaccinated in lockdown as COVID infections spread. And UK anti-terror police investigate an explosion in a taxi outside a Liverpool hospital that killed 1 person. And that's the world today. Thanks for watching. We're on smart TV apps, Roku, Apple TV, Amazon Fire and Android TV, YouTube, Dailymotion, CGTN.com and the CGTN app. And in the UK, on Freeview. We're back with more news at the top of the hour. Coming up next, it's World Insight. For now, from all the team here in London, goodbye.
在听那个英语频道的一些国际新闻。主播还有再过15分钟下线啊。
China Global Television Network. On today's World Insight, on the eve of a summit between the presidents of China and the U.S., what's the state of relations between the world's top economies? The most pressing matters. Here's our host, Tian Wei.
Hello and welcome to World Insight. This is a live show on CGTN. I'm Tian Wei. Chinese President Xi Jinping will meet with U.S. President Joe Biden via video link on Tuesday morning, Beijing time. The Chinese Foreign Ministry said the two presidents will exchange views on ties and issues of mutual concern. The summit is a chance for both leaders to cooperate on global issues and put relations back on track. Before we get down to a discussion about it, let's take a look at this.
The highly anticipated talk will be the third engagement between Chinese President Xi Jinping and Joe Biden since the U.S. president took office in January. The talk will happen days after both countries issued a surprise statement of cooperation on climate change at the COP26 in Glasgow, both pledging to speed up action in reining in greenhouse gas emissions. The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson stressed the summit's importance not only to bilateral ties, but also international relations.
We hope the U.S. and China will meet each other in halfway by enhancing dialogue and cooperation, effectively managing conflicts, and appropriately handling sensitive issues. We hope the two countries will explore ways of mutual respect and peaceful coexistence and push China-U.S. relations back on the right track.
The two sides have had some high-level talks earlier this year, including the phone conversation between the presidents in September, which is a quote, candid, in-depth, and extensive strategic communication and exchanges. And there are also some ministerial meetings. The first face-to-face meeting between top Chinese and U.S. diplomats in Alaska this March opened with a heated exchange.
对啊，在
Then
学
in
习
July,
英语啊。
Chinese State Counselor and Foreign Minister Wang Yi and U.S. Deputy Secretary of State Wendy Sherman met in Tianjin. In October, the director of the Office of the Foreign Affairs Commission of the CPC Central Committee, Yang Jie-cher, and the U.S. National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan met in Zurich. Also in October, Wang Yi met with U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken in Rome on the sidelines of the G20 World Leaders Summit. As the two largest economies in the world, both China and the U.S. are weathering some domestic issues, like the 6th plenary session of the 19th CPC Central Committee, charting China's future development as well as the control of inflation and the pandemic in the U.S. This upcoming meeting between the two leaders is expected to be an equal, mutually beneficial exchange that could put relations back on track.
Yes, the relations between China and the U.S. and the upcoming U.S.-China President's meeting, we are